Hey everyone, Peter Fenger here, and I've got exciting news. On March 19th, we're hosting the Triad Mental Health Summit Series. This event is online and completely free to attend. This summit will feature Owen Marcus, co-founder of MELD, and Sheetal Shah, CEO of Mental Health Partners, two innovative experts exploring the intersection of somatic therapy and modern AI tools for healthcare transformation. This dynamic experience will offer practical strategies for supporting men's health through embodied somatic practices, alongside cutting-edge insights into utilizing AI to enhance healthcare outcomes. Participants will explore how somatic approaches and technology-driven solutions can work to improve care outcomes. Plus, for those looking to stay ahead for professional requirements, CE credits will be available for attendees. Shirley and I will be hosting live and performing interactive Q&A sessions with each speaker, so you can go deeper on what matters most to you. This event isn't just professional development, it's a chance to connect with a community of practitioners who are growing alongside this field. So head over to triadhq.com/TSS to see our full schedule and register for free. That's triadhq.com/TSS. I look forward to seeing you there. Welcome to Behavioral Health Today, a podcast brought to you by the Triad Network. This podcast is designed to share trending topics occurring within the world and our communities and bring them a behavioral and mental health perspective. Welcome to Behavioral Health Today. I'm your host, Peter Fenger. My guest today is Nora Rodden. Nora is the CEO and co-founder of Nervana, a science-based mobile app designed to help users regulate their nervous systems and reclaim their lives from chronic pain. After a life-altering car accident left her suffering from chronic pain, GI issues, and insomnia for 5 years, Nora discovered the power of mind-body therapy through a clinical trial at Harvard Business School that effectively rewired her brain's alarm system. Leveraging her background in biotech and her experience as a certified yoga teacher, she is now on the mission to bring these evidence-based neuroplasticity tools to the research lab and directly into the hands of millions. I'm thrilled to have Nora with me today as we'll discuss her journey from years of chronic pain to full recovery, diving deep on how her Nervana app uses plasticity to help users retrain their danger-prone nervous system and reclaim a lasting sense of eternal safety. Nora, I'm so excited to have you with me on the show today. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I've had a lot of fun learning more about Nervana and your app. From my understanding, it is an app that is used to help users with their chronic pain. I know we've had conversations around chronic pain therapy, but this app really helps in education as well as sort of walking folks through flare-up symptoms. But I know that the story behind it and really the creation, your involvement, is that there was a car accident that sort of changed your life. So take us back to that moment and really help me understand maybe that aha moment when you recognized that chronic pain wasn't physical, but actually neuroplastic.
That's right. Yes. So I was a student at Cornell University. My senior year, I was just walking to class in the morning in a crosswalk, doing all the right things. And I unfortunately was hit by a car. So I was rushed to a trauma center. I got all of the medical workups. Of course, I was in a lot of pain, but because there was nothing physically wrong beyond a couple of fractures, which the doctors expected to heal within a few weeks to months, I was, let go to go home. And it turns out that that pain did not resolve for 5 years. I tried everything. I'm talking physical therapy, acupuncture, clinical massage, chiropractor. I was getting steroid injections in my back. I even did a procedure called nerve ablation, which meant they burned the nerves in my back, and I still was experiencing pain.
Wow.
So that just kind of goes to show like, okay, maybe the pain was not actually localized in my back. But I didn't know any of that at the time. I was just managing my pain and thought I was just going to have to live with it forever. So that was really the setup. Throughout my life, I'd also had a few other symptoms. So it wasn't just chronic pain. I had had some GI symptoms as well as some insomnia, and I always thought those were all very unrelated, and I was just unlucky.
Yeah.
A few years go by, and I was a graduate student. I was at Harvard Business School. I was getting my master's of science in biotechnology and my MBA. And while I was there, I actually saw a poster on campus that was recruiting people for a clinical trial. And this clinical trial was for chronic pain, and it was taking a psychological approach to pain. It was called
Mm,
psychophysiologic symptom relief therapy. I
okay.
had never heard of it, didn't know what it was, but that was my introduction to neuroplasticity. And ultimately, punchline is I healed.
Awesome. Yeah, that's incredible. And it's interesting because I know that a lot of folks who suffer from chronic pain have a very similar path to your own, where they've tried a lot of procedures and then ultimately it guides them into this neuroplasticity side of it. So, talk to me a little bit more about that clinical trial and how that helped. And really, what was the experience that told you that it was important to turn that clinical experience into a mobile app?
That's right. So the trial itself was quite simple. It
Yeah.
was a few months long. We met as a group a few times a week. And the trial was primarily based on education. It was pain education. So we learned a lot as a group around how the pain is actually generated from your brain. Even if you were just hit by a car, even if it's acute pain, all pain is really starting from your brain. Your brain is sending these signals. So we learned a lot about this. We learned about neuroplasticity, your brain's ability to change and respond to stimuli. And so it was a lot of just education. And then we started moving into emotional exploration as well, which at first I didn't quite understand how that was related. But with the education came the understanding that when your nervous system is stuck in this fight or flight, or it's dysregulated, it's oversensitized, essentially it's learned to expect pain. If you are someone who's had chronic pain like I did, and even if you had like a acute injury that you can look back and say, well, I was hit by a car. Obviously, I had chronic pain from that. That might be true. That might be why you had the pain to begin with. But if doctors can no longer figure out why you're still in pain and yet you're still experiencing it, then the fuel to the fire is no longer that car accident from 5 years ago.
Right.
The fuel becomes your brain. Your brain is stuck. And so in the trial, we started to journal. We started to explore what could be causing our nervous system to stay stuck. What emotions are we not allowing to be expressed in our body and might be causing our brain to think that we're in danger, that a, metaphorical tiger is chasing us like in evolutionary times. So that was a lot of what the trial was. It was talking to a mindfulness coach and doing some somatic exercises and breath work to try to bring some regulation to your body, journaling to explore these emotional stressors, and just a lot of education.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Wow. And it not only does it sound so helpful, but it sounds incredibly comprehensive, right? And I know you sort of took this idea and it helped you fuel the creation of Nirvana. What was that
That's
like?
right. Yeah, so I left that clinical trial after a few months without any pain. I was starting to
Wow.
respond to my questionnaires with 0 out of 10, 0 out of 10,
Yeah.
0 out of 10. And that was incredible because I'd had pain for so many years. And what was even more incredible than recovering from pain was recovering from my other symptoms and
Mm,
realizing that all of these were connected and that
okay.
actually my understanding of how my brain and my body were intertwined so deeply was transformative for my chronic pain, for my insomnia. I started to sleep again, for my
Yeah.
GI symptoms. And I just realized that this entire chapter of medicine had really been ignored, or at
Mm,
least in my patient journey, no one had ever told me about this.
right.
Nobody had ever, you know, seriously explained to me that my emotional and my nervous system could be why I was stuck in this cycle of chronic symptoms. So I wanted to change that. I wanted to bring that to others. And so that's where I decided to co found Nervana with my wonderful co founder, Miles. And together we just ideated, how do we take all of this fantastic research and clinically validated methods? How do we put that into an accessible product? Not everybody can access a clinical trial. And if you want to work one-on-one with, a human coach or a mind body coach, that can be really expensive. It can be a few $100s per session. So
Yes.
we decided to recapitulate that experience into a mobile app. So Nervana is a step-by-step program for people with any chronic symptom, really. We're not just focused on pain, but that is a large part of our population. And people can go through and retrain their emotional response and their psychological response to try to bring down that alarm.
Wow, wow. Yeah, and I can imagine that can be so helpful for those that might feel a little lost. I know that it can be very difficult for those that are experiencing chronic pain to understand that it's in their brain and feeling dismissed by most of
Yeah.
the medical community, right? So then how does Nirvana help explain sort of the science behind their nervous system and explain that their pain is real, but it's more neural?
That's right. And as a patient myself, I also felt dismissed. I completely understand when people tell you, well, actually, it has nothing to do with your car accident anymore. It's like, well, you're dismissing kind of the trauma or the injury that came with that.
Right.
But what I learned was that if you ultimately want to get better, if that's your goal, you just want to feel better, which I think is everyone's goal. They want to feel better if they have chronic symptoms, then why not give something a shot? Why not give something
Yes.
a shot that is different than what you've been giving, a shot all these years, which is
Yes.
probably physical treatments. And so
Mhm.
try this emotional, this psychological approach. And so what we do in Nirvana is first, we're very careful with the language. We are not saying that this is all in your head. It's not. It's not all in your head. And you can't just like think your way with a positive mindset into recovery. What we're
Yes.
trying to do is actually get your brain to start predicting safety rather than danger.
Mhm.
That is what helps you feel better. That is what reduces the signals of pain or other symptoms. And so, with little exercises that our AI conversational coach provides for you, which is very personalized to each person's unique journey. So I can't say like exactly what the coach will prescribe for you. But with that, you'll have conversations, you'll explore what might be keeping your nervous system in high alert, and then you'll explore specific experiments. I can give you an example so that listeners
Please.
might try to follow along. So let's say, you have really bad chronic pain and because of it have not been able to play sports, which is something you used to love. And you're talking to your Nirvana AI coach, you're conversing via voice around, how frustrated you feel about this and how you feel like anytime you pick up, a sports gear, you start to have pain. Well, your coach will start to explore with you. Well, isn't it interesting that when you think about your sports or engaging in sports, you start to already have that pain. Like that might be a signal that your brain is predicting it. So the
Mm.
first step is really to try to help you draw these insights and patterns so that you yourself as an expert, you yourself as a detective can start to take back control. And then the
Yes.
coach might assign you a specific experiment. Like, hey,
Mm.
how about tomorrow you pick up like a baseball or whatever it is that you want to do. You pick it up and you just sit with it for another minute. Just 1 minute, just sit with it and that starts to help bring down the predictive signals that, sports equal injury. And so
Yes.
just little tiny actionable steps like that can actually make a big difference.
Yeah, it sounds like it can. And really, as you explained, that it's the fear of the symptom that really causes that alarm to sound louder. And
Yeah.
what you're outlining is that these small little exercises then build up, right? If I can sit with it for a minute, I can sit with it for 3 minutes, etc. We can start to extend that experience a little bit larger and ultimately start to calm down that emotional response, right?
Mhm. That's right. That's right. The only thing I would just clarify there is that the fear is not always conscious. So when
Yes.
I was first introduced to the science of neuroplasticity, I didn't quite get it. I was
Mm.
kind of like, well, I'm not afraid. I'm here in graduate school. I'm having a great time. Like, I'm not afraid of anything. I'm not afraid of my symptoms. But that fear is subconscious that we're talking about. It's not you afraid, it's your brain is afraid. And that's just
Mm.
something to clarify because a lot of people listening might say, "Well, I'm not afraid, so this isn't for me." Well,
Right.
just, give it a shot because you might not be afraid, but your nervous system is still stuck.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Really, what happens is we have a traumatic response, and our nervous system gets wired into that response because it's trying to self preserve. Right.
Exactly.
And by doing these little exercises, we're slowly retraining our brain to different, again, that neuroplasticity is really the heart of this work. It's trying to retrain our brain into a more safer, relaxed response to that environment.
Absolutely. And I think the simplest example that I can give is when you're at home, imagine you're by yourself, you don't expect anybody to be home with you, and you hear a loud door slam inside of your house. You immediately have a stress response. Like your heart starts racing, your hands get clammy, you might be sweating, your eyes dilated, and you're like, who's here? Like, who is here in my home threatening me? And then you realize, oh, it's just, my friend who is coming to pick something up. And you start to relax. Your nervous system starts to
Mm.
down regulate. That's exactly what we're talking about here. It's as simple as that, but you can also apply that to more extreme ends of really severe and real chronic symptoms.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about because I know that Nirvana also targets migraines, digestive
Yeah.
disorder, and as you explained your experience, those things are sort of connected. Talk to me a little bit about this common thread between these different symptoms.
Yeah. So, one of the mind body pioneers that a lot of people know about is Dr. John Sarno. And he
Mm.
really pioneered this notion that hypervigilance in individuals may be just like an innate thing. You
Mm.
might just be someone, and I am one of these people myself. You might just be someone that your nervous system is kind of just hyper vigilant by nature, but and that often is what helps you succeed in life. Very ambitious people tend to have these stress related conditions because you're so good at answering an email super quickly or keeping your room very clean. You have a very type A personality. All of these things they're good things. There's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes that can disproportionately result in people who have chronic conditions because your nervous system is kind of learned to treat everything as a metaphorical tiger chasing you. So that email from your boss triggers that fight or flight response. Feeling like you're disappointing your family triggers that fight or flight response. All of these things can cause this chronic perpetual stress which can manifest into physical disease. And you can have a real physical cause, like a car accident, like, a skiing accident. Like you can have
Yes.
these physical causes. But if your body doesn't recover in the way that it should, like broken bones should heal, if it doesn't recover and you're still experiencing these issues, then likely there's a brain body connection that's not being addressed. So,
Mm.
all we're trying to do with Nirvana is just address that connection. And that could mean that you use this as adjunct treatment. So you are, you have IBS and you're taking antibiotics, but you're still noticing that sometimes when you just think about onions and garlic, like you start to feel bloating or digestive discomfort. That's what we're really trying to disassociate.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsor.
Today's episode is brought to you by Jane, a practice management software and EMR built to support you in the day-to-day work of running your business. If you're a health or wellness practitioner, you already know the care you provide starts well before your patient arrives and extends far beyond the treatment room. Jane is here to support every part of that experience. With online booking, your clients can book at a time that works for them, and with features like waitlist notifications, they'll be able to grab last-minute openings when they pop up. It's an easy way to keep your schedule full while getting your patients the care they need. During your appointment, Jane's AI-powered documentation feature can help you thoroughly take notes so you can stay present with the person in front of you. And after appointments, you can end your time together on a healing note, not a transactional one, by charging the card on file and rebooking before they head out. Personally, when I was looking for a therapist, Jane made the entire experience feel effortless. Booking an appointment was simple, I could choose the practitioner who felt right for me, and all my upcoming sessions were easy to see in one place. Jane even made it possible for me to join my appointments virtually through video calls, which fit perfectly into my schedule. And with built-in messaging, my therapist could check in with me between sessions, helping me stay supported and motivated throughout the week. Jane didn't just help me book an appointment, it helped me show up on time, stay engaged, and keep moving forward between sessions. To learn more about how Jane can support you and your patients, head to jane.app/demo. And if you're ready to get started with Jane, you can use our code TRIAD1MO or TRIAD1MO for 1 month grace period on your new account. When your work is about people, Jane supports the process. Yes. Yeah. And I can see how this same emotional response ripples into so many other parts of the body, right? It's just interesting how our bodies are sort of wired together in that way. So, talk to me a little bit about a typical daily session, because I understand that the app is built in a way so that it can be easy to use. Sessions can be relatively short, but you're also balancing education. You have journal prompts, there's somatic exercises, and you're doing it all in sort of a short window. So, talk to me a little bit about what an average user would go through in one of these sessions.
Yeah. So we tried to recapitulate it very similarly to clinical trials, but
Hmm.
also hyper personalize it. So for
Okay.
each individual, their experience is slightly different. The structure remains the same. Nirvana is a highly structured program. We don't want you guessing at what you should do next or have like a very large library of resources or content. We're really trying to hold your hand through a program. So the first thing that a user will do when they log into the Nirvana app is they'll see their daily plan. The first thing is education. So they'll go through very bite sized educational modules. Every day is a little bit different. One day might be about learning about personality traits and how that can sometimes trigger chronic symptoms. And so you'll learn just maybe 5 minutes in this educational multimedia content. So we have some videos, we have some audio recordings from wonderful clinicians who have contributed to Nirvana. We have some visuals. So you'll go through all of this specific to your symptom.
Mm.
After, you will talk to your Nirvana AI coach for about 10 minutes. And this is where the deep exploration happens. Your Nirvana coach will ask you about your day, ask you about your symptoms, ask you about the connection between the two. And hopefully, the two of you together will be able to brainstorm experiments that feel doable to try to teach your body safety and just go a little bit deeper. Of course, I have to mention that the Nirvana AI coach is not a therapist. So, it is important to still have access to a mental health professional. Can't do like very intense trauma processing, but it is where you start to explore this emotional component of your chronic symptoms. The last thing is that your coach will assign you actions and takeaways. One of those might be an experiment. It also might be journaling. So you'll write a little bit to help you start to uncover. And then in the background, once you're done with that 15 to 20-minute session, you're done for the day. We want you to go and live your life. That's part of the recovery journey is just living your life.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And I can so appreciate the personal interaction that comes from working with an AI coach. Again, it is there to emulate a personality, but I think that there can be data points and suggestions that goes into better awareness than say just going through, comprehensive text, right? There's a little bit more of a personality, and hopefully what it does is it helps people create more of an emotional attachment to this program and they want to use it a little bit more. Talk to me a little bit about how the AI coach learns about user specific stressors and sort of provides the additional information to kind of encourage them along with the program.
Yeah, yeah. So the coach learns about you simply from conversation, as if
Okay.
like a friend would learn about you or a therapist would learn about you. It asks questions, it learns what, your stressors might be, maybe you have an upcoming move coming up, and then the next time it talks to you, it'll ask you about that move. So it has stored memories, and that's really how we're able to have this very sort of data-driven approach to recovery where
Interesting.
the coach can really tie things together and spot patterns that maybe even a
Mhm.
human wouldn't be able to do live. And so that's really how it learns about you, stores memories, and then makes sure to follow up and try to connect some dots.
Yeah. Are you finding maybe like an age group that responds better to this AI coach?
Yeah.
Or you're finding like a sort of a diversity of ages across your users?
So we are seeing a diversity of ages and a
Okay.
diversity of symptoms. And also, many of our users have multiple symptoms.
Yeah.
And so, since we're kind of treating the underlying nervous system, then people see benefit across symptoms. That said, we found it very interesting and exciting for us that many of our users who are very engaged with the program are older. They're in their 70s, they're in their 80s. And that's amazing because we're able to help build trust with AI, with artificial intelligence, which can be scary. I get it. It can feel a little bit like, who am I talking to? We designed it with clinicians with the utmost, safety guardrails in mind. So we're very happy and pleased that the older population, the aging population is finding that Nirvana is a reliable and trusted source.
Yeah, yeah, that's very encouraging. I know that recovery isn't linear, and this app can assist folks when they have active symptom flare ups. What does that look like in terms of support?
Yeah, so we currently have 3 modules for flare-ups, and we
Mhm.
are always going to be ideating and making more and more awesome features for our users. Currently, we have flare-up support, which is either your Nirvana coach talks about like gentle reassurance, tries to help you in the moment whenever you have an active flare-up through gentle guidance. The other option is to actually go through a breathing and somatic exercise where your Nirvana coach tries to get you to exhale longer than you would inhale and just really try to trigger the parasympathetic nervous system. And then
Yes.
finally, one feature we just released is just guided breathing, but rather than with your Nirvana coach, you're sort of doing it on your own and it's very visual. So you're actually able to like see your breath around this cool like box feature, which can help people settle down as well.
Yeah, yeah, that is neat. I mean, having those visuals really assist in sort of bringing folks back into that present moment. All
Mhm.
those things kind of help trigger that parasympathetic nerve. I'm really kind of curious about the user experience, right? Because I know, reading from your website, you're reporting that 7 out of 8 users report an increase of quality of life. That's phenomenal. So I'm kind of curious about when users start to engage with your app, how long do they go before they start to see some improvement?
Yeah, that's right. So a lot of the research on our website is actually clinically validated trials and results. So
Yes.
what you see on our website is really the clinical research about neuroplasticity. For
Mhm.
Nirvana, since we are, early and we just kind of launched, we're still collecting that data, but we are seeing really great directionality. By week 3, we're seeing a lot of our users, the majority, are improving their quality of life
Wow.
and reducing symptom severity. And so we're kind of seeing that engagement varies. The more you engage, the better you'll be able to train your safety response. We tend to encourage people to use Nirvana 3 to 4 times a week. And that's really only because we don't want people to be obsessed with recovery. We
Mm.
want them to go on and live their lives. Like that's equally as important.
Yeah.
But, if you only do it once a week, that's okay as well. It really will go at your own pace.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting. And again, really encouraging, again, to know that if I work at this for a period of time, that things will ultimately improve, right? And you're seeing it that in the data. As you've mentioned, chronic pain isn't always addressed well within our medical system. But I know that you're actually positioning Nirvana as a tool for doctors and mental health practitioners to subscribe to their patients. How do you see Nirvana bridging that gap between doctor visits or sessions with a client on the daily reality of chronic illness?
Yeah, so a lot of clinicians are treating the physical body. So
Yeah.
we have physical therapists and we have, acupuncturists and chiropractors, and they're doing amazing work. And I really respect what they're doing. But their visits are often limited in time and duration. So if you are somebody that's mostly treating the physical body, but you also think that your clients or patients need some support treating the emotional and the psychological, then that's where we've seen a lot of clinicians refer to Nirvana. They receive a discount code for their patients, which helps make it a little bit more affordable. They can find that on our website, trynirvana.com. That's Nervana. And so any clinician can request access and they can also use it for free so that they can follow along with their patients. We've
Interesting.
also seen really good success from clinicians that are actually already treating the mind body connection. So they're maybe psychologists or therapists or coaches, and they're already treating this connection. So you might ask, well, then why would they prescribe or use Nirvana? What we've found is that it's really helpful for patients or clients where they are looking for more resources. They are really engaged. They want more support. And clinicians can actually use Nirvana as part of their treatment. They can say, I want you to do 3 sessions of Nirvana by the time we speak next so that we can unpack that. And
Yeah.
users actually have the ability to export their insights to their clinician via a PDF, super easy to read, and their clinician and the user or client can work on it together. They can review those insights together.
Yeah, wow, that's a really helpful feature. And again, I imagine that just the awareness that comes from working with that AI coach, having some of that data get passed along to your provider can be really the difference of having a really great session that can really address, some of the things that are coming up in the app.
Absolutely. And I think that's where it's really important to, before you use Nirvana, make sure you have a medical provider that you've spoken with.
Sure.
We want to make sure that this is adjunct and that this is something that clinicians really share with their clients and patients. Of course, you can just go to the App Store and download Nirvana Chronic Symptom Coach yourself, but we do encourage this integrated care with clinicians.
Yeah, absolutely. I imagine that the effectiveness of this program can really go alongside with medical professionals. And so, having those tools to be able to export and pass along, or even just having the knowledge of this app alongside your medical care can be a real difference in people's quality life. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really kind of curious because you did talk about how this area of medical science is kind of a blind spot, right? When we talk about the healthcare system as a whole, what are you sort of your big picture goal on how we treat chronic symptoms as you interact with this app and sort of picture it 5 years from now?
Yeah, my goal is for patients to have an option when they have struggled with chronic symptoms and they go to the doctor and the doctor refers them to a specialist and the specialist says, your tests are coming back normal. Let me refer you to this other specialist. And they just keep doing that.
Yes.
I want a doctor to say, have you tried Nirvana? Have you tried this mind body approach? Here it is. I believe in it. There's data to support it. That's my goal. My goal is for, you know, opioids, which are, massively still being prescribed, or unnecessary surgeries that are not actually addressing the root cause and people still have pain afterwards.
Sure.
I want Nirvana to be taken seriously as a potential treatment for people, whether it's alongside their care or a standalone.
Yeah. I mean, just kind of parking on that, talk to the patient that might have had multiple surgeries and still experiencing pain, maybe recognizing that the only solution might be another surgery. What might you speak to that person?
Yeah, yeah. I might say that it's not your fault. This is a blind spot in the Western world.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, our healthcare system in the United States has really been focused on broken bones and acute injuries. But when things become chronic, when conditions start to overrule your life and you're not making sense in the traditional medical model, then you're often forgotten. And so it's not your fault. You're not alone. A lot of people have gone through this. I have gone through this. And it's very, very difficult to do this on your own. And so I'm just so happy that there's now more and more evidence that shows that there's more than just one way. It's not just first line standard of care that your doctor prescribes you. And if you fail that, well, good luck. Now there are more options. And so we hope that you find some relief.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. As I sort of wrap up today, I'm curious, Nora, do you have maybe like a hallmark story or any testimonials that you're hearing from people that have found success with your program?
We do actually. So we've been having a lot of really great testimonials come through from our first users that are kind of ending their Nervana program. They're asking
Yes.
for more. So now we're creating a monthly continuation plan to help people get more and more support. And the types of things we're hearing are that people are learning more about themselves in just a few days than they have in a few years.
Right.
People have noticed that their nervous system is way more relaxed. They've noticed that their symptoms have decreased. And so we're just really excited to be seeing that level of benefit from something as simple as a mobile app.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, again, it can be really interesting knowing what an impact you're making, in the lives of your users, really, knowing that this could really be the difference of them healing their bodies fully and living a life in chronic pain. So, bravo on that.
Thank you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Finally, I would love to leave our listeners where they can learn a little bit more about your app and where they can find more information. So share with our listeners where they can go to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can download Nervana, Nervana, Chronic Symptom Coach on the Apple App Store. Android is still in the works, unfortunately. But if you have an Apple device, an iPad, or an iPhone, you can download Nervana and you can use code BHT50 for $50 off.
Awesome.
So we really hope that you give it a shot and you can always explore it. And if you don't like it, message me and I will respond because we really want to prioritize quality here.
Yeah, awesome. And I do appreciate you sharing that code. Again, that's BHT50. That's $50 off their subscription with our listeners. And again, just to plug once more for the clinician side, where can they go in order to learn a little bit more about Nervana and just as an option to share with their patients?
Yeah, so they can go to trynervana.com, trynervana.com, and you'll see a clinician section. And that's where you can request free access for Nervana, as well as a discount code for your clients.
Awesome. Well, Nora, I so appreciate your time and really sharing your stories. Again, your app sounds so incredibly well thought out, and the information that you're providing is important. Again, you're talking to a very vulnerable group that have been very frustrated with the medical process until, somebody's starting to talk about chronic pain in a different way. So, very excited for our listeners to learn a little bit more about your app.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me on. It was an honor being here.
Thank you very much, Nora. I appreciate your time. And I want to thank you, our listeners, for taking the time to join us. You can follow us on our social media at Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, and more at Behavioral Health Today. And if you like our show, give us 5 stars and leave us a review. As always, the resources for this episode and an archive of all our other episodes can be found on our webpage at triadhq.com/BHT. And we look forward to having you back with us next time on Behavioral Health Today. We appreciate all the support from our community, and if you like our show, one of the best ways you can support it is by giving us a 5-star rating and leaving a review. Behavioral Health Today is a podcast part of the Triad Behavioral Health Network, all rights reserved.